I've been reflecting a lot on my own journey of learning English and how, if I could go back in time, I might approach things differently. You see, learning a language is such a personal experience. It's full of highs and lows, little triumphs, and sometimes big frustrations. And while I don't regret the path I took, I know now that there are ways I could have made it smoother, more enjoyable, and, dare I say, more effective. So let's talk about it.
Hi everyone, we're the Shirfa sisters from Malaysia. Azima, Amna, and me, Aisha, hosts of the My English Matters podcast. After spending 8 years in the UK as children, we know the importance of mastering a second language, so we created MyEnglishMatters.com as a platform to help second language learners learn to speak, write, and communicate in English with confidence through our online courses, classes, and workshops. To join our free course called Speaking with Confidence and get the latest updates about our programs, subscribe to our email list at MyEnglishMatters.com. And now, without further ado, let's get started.
Hi, and welcome back to the My English Matters podcast. I'm your host for this episode, Aida, from My English Matters Customer Support, and I take care of students' queries through Facebook, Instagram DMs, and emails. I think many of our students and listeners will resonate with today's topic because so many of us struggle to start learning English, or for some, to restart. Here's what we're talking about: what I would do if I started all over again. When I think about the very beginning of my English learning journey, the first thing that comes to mind is how scared I was to make mistakes. I was terrified of sounding wrong or saying something silly. Do you ever feel that way? Like you'd rather stay quiet than risk being judged? But looking back, I realized that this fear of making mistakes held me back. If I could do it all over again, I'd tell myself, and I'm telling you now, you don't have to be embarrassed about making mistakes. Mistakes are how we learn. They show us where we can improve, and that's a good thing. One thing I'd encourage is to be open to corrections. If someone corrects your grammar or pronunciation, don't take it personally. See it as a gift. They're helping you grow. It's not always easy to accept feedback, but it's one of the fastest ways to learn. Here's a mindset shift that helped me. Instead of thinking of mistakes as failures, think of them as stepping stones. Every oops moment is one step closer to fluency. Celebrate the fact that you're brave enough to try. I remember when I was almost 7 years old, I barely spoke any English, even though the rest of my siblings spoke it at home. I was the slowest one to learn the language because I didn't grow up in the UK like the rest of my siblings. I could understand English, but I mostly spoke Malay with my mum. The only sentence I could confidently say was, "I like cats." It was my go-to line, my safety net. Meanwhile, my neighbor Jessica, who was just 5 at the time, was already a fluent speaker. To top it off, she spoke English remarkably well for a 5-year-old. Whenever we played together, I'd try to join the conversation with my trusty phrase, "I like cats." And then I'd follow it up with, "Do you like cats?" That was my attempt at keeping the conversation going. She tried to talk to me about other things, but I had nothing else to say, just, "I like cats. Do you like cats?" One day, Jessica got fed up and said, "Why do you always say and ask me the same things?" I was so embarrassed. I remember running to my mum and telling her about it. But I didn't just feel embarrassed, I felt determined too. I didn't want to be stuck saying the same thing over and over. I wanted to speak English, express myself better, and share my interests with her. I wished so badly that I could talk about cartoons or discuss our favorite dolls together. That moment was like a switch flipping in my mind. My mum saw how serious I was and bought me a beginner's grammar exercise book. I devoured it immediately. Within a week, I finished every exercise. My mum had to buy me another book, and I finished that one too. By the time I started primary school the next year, I had become the best in my class at grammar. That little girl who could only say "I like cats" was now confidently writing sentences, answering questions, and even helping others with their grammar in class. Although I was very little at the time, that memory really stuck with me because it was a turning point in my life. It was the moment I realized that I didn't want to feel limited in expressing myself anymore. It became more than just about learning English. It was about being able to connect with others, share my thoughts, and participate in conversations that mattered to me. And I have my neighbor, Jessica, to thank for that. Her honesty, though difficult to hear at the time, gave me the push I needed to start taking my learning seriously. Looking back, I see how a simple interaction can spark something so profound it shaped my determination to grow and embrace new challenges with an open mind. So, if you're in a place where you feel stuck or limited, remember my story. Even if all you know is, I like cats, that is still a start. Keep saying it, keep asking questions, keep putting yourself out there because every sentence, every conversation, and yes, even every mistake is a step closer to becoming the English speaker you want to be. Another thing I'd do differently is I'd stop trying to sound perfect and focus more on being understood. I used to think I needed big, fancy words to show that I could speak English, but honestly, that made things harder for me. So instead of aiming for perfection, I'd focus on learning simple, practical phrases that I could use every day. Things like, how much is this? Or, hi, how's your day going? And even, can you repeat that, please? Or, I don't understand. Could you explain? These kinds of sentences are so much more useful because they keep the conversation going. And here's a tip for you. When you hear someone use a phrase that you like, repeat it. Write it down. Practice saying it out loud until it feels natural. The more you use it, the more it becomes yours. Now, if I could start all over again, I'd also spend a lot more time listening to English. Back then, I thought learning meant reading textbooks and memorizing vocabulary lists. And yes, those things are helpful, but I didn't realize how much I could learn just by listening. Think about it. When you listen to English, you're not just learning words, you're picking up on how sentences flow, how people emphasize certain words, and even how emotions are expressed. For me, it started with watching TV shows. As a child, I loved period dramas like Downton Abbey, Pride and Prejudice, and Jane Eyre. Although their English was very advanced even for me at the time, I focused on interpreting the stories through the actors' performances and the plot. Over time, I became more familiar with the words they used and practiced by acting out the lines myself. Now, if I were to start learning English, I would choose simpler shows for adults. I loved shows like Community and Modern Family because the dialogue is simple and funny, yet they also tackle complex topics for adults. I'd watch with subtitles on, but after a while I challenged myself to turn them off. It was hard at first, but eventually I started catching phrases and understanding jokes without needing to read along. If you enjoy movies, podcasts, or even YouTube videos, use them to your advantage. And don't just watch or listen, try mimicking what you hear. If an actor says, "That's amazing," in an excited tone, say it the same way. It's like a workout for your mouth and ears. I wish I had started using English in my daily life earlier. Remember when I told you about feeling embarrassed because all I could say was, I like cats? Back then, I was good at English in theory, as a subject. I excelled at grammar, but I rarely spoke it with my school friends since most of them spoke Malay. I only used English when necessary, and even then, I often mixed Malay and English within the same sentence. There's nothing wrong with that, but in settings where formal English is required, it can be challenging. That's when I realized that in order to become fluent in a language, you can't just study it, you have to use it in real life. For instance, if you love cooking, why not follow recipes in English? If you're into music, try looking up lyrics to your favorite songs and singing along. Even small things like naming the items you're buying at the store in English can make a difference. These little habits help you start thinking in the language instead of constantly translating in your head. Try writing your entire shopping list in English. It may seem like such a minor thing, but it will make you pay attention to words like vegetables, toothpaste, and snacks. You can practice saying those words to yourself as you pick up each item. It's such a simple exercise, but it can really help you connect the language to your daily life. Finally, if I could start over, I'd be kinder to myself. Learning English is a journey, it's not something you master overnight. There were so many times I felt frustrated because I wasn't improving fast enough. I compare myself to others and think, why is it so easy for them yet so hard for me? But now I know that everyone learns at their own pace. Some days you'll feel like you're making a huge progress, other days you might feel stuck. That's normal. What matters is that you keep going, even on the hard days. Celebrate your wins, no matter how small they seem. Did you understand a complex sentence in a movie? That's a win. Did you have a conversation in English, even if it was just a few sentences? That's a win too. Every step forward counts. So, if I were to sum it all up, if I started all over again, I'd embrace mistakes, focus on being understood rather than perfect, immerse myself in English through listening, bring the language into my everyday life, and most importantly, I'd be patient with myself. And you? Wherever you are on your journey, I hope this inspires you to keep going. Thank you so much for listening today. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with a friend who's learning English too. Until next time, take care and keep learning. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the My English Matters podcast. Please make sure to click the subscribe button if you haven't yet and leave a review of this podcast if you like it. If you'd like to learn even more with us, we have a free training called Speaking with Confidence where we send 7 tips to your email. You'll also get weekly emails with tips and lessons to help you improve your English. Join us at myenglishmatters.com.